Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. Our program is supported by Franklin Public Radio, and you can find out all about us on our website, thewww.wine. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. I am Mark. How are you, Kim?
I'm all right, Mark. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. And today, a rarity. We have no guest on the show. We are going to just talk the OG Kim, right? We're gonna just go
Just like
back
we
to
used to for many, many
yeah,
years.
we have some topics always to talk about. We keep a stash of articles we like to talk about. And today, Kim, I think we should just start out by telling the listeners, updating them on an award show that we got nominated for a few things. This was very exciting for us. The 16th Annual Taste Awards, which was held in Beverly Hills. And we didn't go, Kim. I don't have a
No,
tux and
I didn't have the right dress,
yeah, they were pretty fancy out there. But the Academy nominated us for Best Reality Series, Best Drink or Beverage Program. And then there were viewer choice nominations that we had two nominations for Best Food and Drink Podcast and Best Food or Drink Radio Broadcast. And we took home one award, Kim, and that was very exciting. We got our little medals and certificates. So thank you to everybody who nominated us and for the Academy for voting for us. We really appreciate it.
And so our listeners know we won in the best reality show category. And I can only imagine this is because we had such a stellar lineup of interviews in our 2024 season where we had winemakers and winery owners and people who are influential in the industry and writers and people who are sort of pushing the boundaries and asking tough questions and things like that. So that's the only thing that I can think of why we won reality show. But when I went back and thought about it, I was like, yeah, we had all these really great interviews with so many interesting and different people from all corners of the wine world. So, Mark, I'm really proud of you for coming up with all of these ideas, but also how tenacious you are in scheduling these wonderful people who show up on our show. So you really do an amazing job. So kudos to you.
We couldn't do it without you and my partner in crime here and
right.
the radio station for supporting us. And they helped us create a little acceptance video we sent out to Beverly Hills. And it was Academy nominated, which it wasn't something we submitted. The viewer choice, which we begged people to vote for us, we lost to The Wine Road, which is a very good podcast and radio show. So just big news to share, and thank you to everybody again,
and really exciting for us, like, to get this kind of recognition. It was like so cool. And Mark, you were like, is this real? I'm like, yeah, this is real. Like, I think this is real recognition. So we will continue to do what we've been doing side by side for this show. So thank you for all of our listeners and all of our supporters, and we're going to keep at it.
And it's good that it's also going to be shown on public broadcasting when the award ceremony was recorded, and we'll post that on all our social media once they push it on PBS. So thanks again to everybody. So the other news we're going to talk about today is Kim was once again the world traveler and went to Italy. And at the same time, there was a few articles roaming around the internet about when you're on vacation and you're having wine. It's very common that people say, I drink wine on vacation, Kim, and I don't have any hangover or any problems with that wine. And I'm sure, first, I want to ask you, Kim, before we get to your trip, is this a common question you get a lot from people?
I get it all the time.
I'm so glad you said
people,
that.
yeah, people really want to know, like, they legitimately ask, like, I go to Italy and I have wine with lunch, I have an aperitif, I have a bottle of wine with dinner with my spouse or my friends, and then we have something else after. They're like, I drink all this wine and I feel fine the next day. And then people make the jump to, there must be something different in the wine here that you're drinking that is not apparent in the wine in Europe. So I kind of want to use this to sort of dispel that a little bit, but I think we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah, and like you, I hear it so much, and it seems to always be about Italy. I was in Italy and drinking wine all the time, and I've never got a headache. It was just great over there. And then I'm always thinking about things like, well, how can I, as a wine geek, reply to that? And usually I just say, well, geez, you're in Italy and it's beautiful, and I would assume that's a big part of it. But then I always come up with geeky things where I'm told if you look at the wineries in Italy, some go back to, the 1400s, and they're still using the same barrels and everything. They must use more sulfur and stuff to clean those barrels. So why is that you're over there and it doesn't affect you like it does here?
Well, I get the question of people drink the same exact wine in Italy that they drink here. So it's not like the difference between drinking Italian wine and drinking American mass produced wine when you're back at home. Someone's like, I had XYZ Chianti in Italy, and then I came back home and drank XYZ Chianti at home, and I have a terrible hangover. So there must be something different about what they send to the US.
So
it's not true, listeners.
Yeah. And so there was a few articles that popped up. Something was in the Somme Journal, something was in another independent blog, and they actually came up with a reason why you don't get these headaches and stuff when you're on vacation. It doesn't just matter Italy, just any vacation you're drinking wine, why you feel so good. So do you want to give our listeners some information about that, Kim?
A lot of different factors, I think, play into why you might have a different physical response to alcohol when you're on vacation versus when you're at home. And one of the things that these articles really talked about was physical activity. So if you are on vacation, and especially if you are visiting someplace like Rome or Florence or Paris, you're going to be probably walking a lot because you're going to see the sights and you want to take in the atmosphere and all of that. So chances are your level of physical activity is way higher than it is at home when you are sitting at your desk at work, or even if you're chasing your kids around the kitchen or doing your normal everyday stuff. So I think that the physical activity part is definitely something that is important to take into account. And I know that as I've kind of been reading up on Italian culture and why it is that like the Italian lifestyle is so much better for you, you could eat the same things and drink the same things here, but when you compare Americans and Italians, like actual Italians who live in Italy, the health concerns are different. And one of the things that always seems to pop up is this tradition of taking a walk after a meal. So after dinner, you would take a walk. After lunch, you'd probably go back to work. So you're probably walking to work. All of this like small integrations of everyday physical activity, I think, is a big reason why the processing of alcohol and calories is a little bit easier to do if you're living, la vita bella in Italy.
So the bottom line is the studies were saying that moderate exercise, be it walking or everything you're doing while being on vacation, counteracts the effects of alcohol. So that's why you feel better. You're always pretty much on the go. And I want to build up to your trip because I have questions about what you noticed in wine. But related to this, a lot of times you hear, and you probably experienced this too, is you're in Italy. Maybe you weren't getting that effect from the wine because you were served like a table wine. And that wine is not imported here or exported to here. So they're thinking that is why that wine is better than the stuff that's bottled, something's put in it, and then we have it here. And that's why it's different here. What do you think about that theory about the table wines, Kim?
So I think that there probably could be something to the table wine theory, but it's not that. It's not that, oh, there are fewer additives, they're not exported, yada, yada, yada. So they're generally simpler wines, and they're generally lower in alcohol. So they're not as heavy. They're more refreshing because they're supposed to go with a meal. And especially if you're talking about like these lighter bodied white and red wines that are sort of generic but local to the region. They're not the fanciest thing, but they're really great to have with your pizza or your pasta. They're probably only clocking in at 11% 9% alcohol. So I think that that difference of a few percentage points of alcohol really can make a big difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And it's fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now
And it's
let's,
local. It doesn't have to travel very
yep.
far. I mean, is it going to stand up to something in international wine competition? No, but that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to go really, really well with that pizza you have
Right.
in front of you. Yeah, I love that whole culture of this is just the local table wine that this restaurant happens to serve. And usually it's pretty spot on.
So let's now talk about the trip. Once again, you went to Italy, but this time it was a family vacation, and you had told me
Yeah.
that you weren't really going to focus on winery visits, so you didn't visit any wineries, correct?
We did not visit any wineries. So
Okay.
my children are teenagers. They have never been to Italy. We have been planning this Italy trip for 5 or 6 years now, and we were all set to go in spring of 2020. So school vacation week of April 2020 was the plan. We had hotels booked, everything was all set, and then the pandemic happened, so the vacation did not happen. Tried to reschedule it another time, that fell through. So this was our third time. Is a charm. My kids didn't actually believe it was going to happen until we were in the air.
Huh.
Like we were on the airplane, we took off, and they looked at me and they're like, "Hey, it's actually happening." I'm like, "We got to get there." So it's like finally this darn vacation happened. But both my husband and I are, well, our family is of Italian descent. We studied together in Italy when we were college students. We were friends way back then. So it's a very special place for us. Our families travel to Italy fairly often, with their siblings and their cousins and all that. So it was later than we wanted to introduce the kids to the country, but we felt like it was important to give them this sort of introduction to Italy. We only did Venice and Rome. We did Venice because that's a special place for us. That's where we studied when we were in college. So we know the city. We kind of know the dialect a little bit, which is sort of fun because it's a little bit of a funky dialect. And then we decided to do Rome because we're all history buffs and my kids just kind of eat that stuff up. So that's what we did. We split between two major cities and we took 10 days over February vacation. And it was cold in Venice in February, but Rome was absolutely lovely. And I promised my children either cappuccini or gelato every single day, and we got those things, so they were happily fed for the trip.
So there's a few things I take from this, Kim. I've never really heard anyone who has gone to Italy not said, I want to go. They go into the winery was some of the things, or they asked me a reference of some place to go. So it must have been hard for you as a wine geek. I want to know what you observed wine related when you were there. Did you see a lot of or partake in any of the table wines, or did you feel relaxed? Any of these
Yeah.
notice effects that like you were more relaxed, you could drink more than.
So, what I noticed was that what was available as far as wine was really dependent on the restaurant itself. So, we kind of did the whole gamut from little sandwich places all the way up to like a nice, fancy white tablecloth dining experience where they literally bring out the daily fish catch of the day and wheel it in front of you. And they're like, you want this fish? We'll cook this fish for you. So the wine that we drank
Is a wine list common
yes.
in the okay, so they
So
do
for
hand you a
that,
wine
yeah.
list.
So for
What did you notice?
so I noticed that most of the wine lists were, of course, very Italian centric, which was what I was expecting. And I was really only planning on drinking Italian wine when I was there. So there were some restaurants that had wines from all over the country and from other places as well. I tried to stick kind of regionally, so tried to drink more Northern Italian wines when we were in Venice. And then I branched out a little bit when we were down in Rome. Rome is not really known as a wine producing area. So the region that Rome is within is called Lazio. And there are really only a few appellations. They don't necessarily produce these high powered DOC wines like Barolo, Barbaresco, Chianti. There's nothing from that region that are these like superstar styles or appellations of wine. However, we did go to one restaurant that had like 2 full pages of wines just from Lazio. And I
Wow.
was floored. I was like, I want to order like four of them. Of course I couldn't, but I was like, oh, really? I have to like narrow this down to one? But they had a page of whites and a page of reds, all from Lazio. And I was so excited. It was the only place that I saw anything like that. But overall, there was a lot to choose from. It was things that I was familiar with, went wonderful with the food. It was like a can't lose situation. And I would say that the restaurants that were kind of I don't want to say fancier, but the slightly nicer restaurants that had wine lists, you could choose bottles from the wine list. But we did go to a couple of different places where it was just like you get a carafe of white or you get a carafe of red, and they don't tell you on the list what it is. It's just the wine is there with the soda and with the with the beer and with the other drinks. It's just
Is it
you
complimentary?
order. No,
Like the butter and bread? No.
no. So there were some places that would give you like a little complimentary nibble or little small drink beforehand. But as far as the wine goes, no, you're always paying for your wine.
So what about when you were up north? Did you take part in any sparkling wine? Were you looking at any special Prosecco's or anything when you were up there?
Yeah. So I had a couple of different sparkling wines from the northern part of the country, since that's what I like to do. There was one that I chose off a wine list, which was a style that I had never seen before. So I was like, I'm just going to go for it. But a lot of Prosecco. And what's interesting about when you're in Italy and you're looking at the category of sparkling wine here in the United States, if you're looking at your wine list, it'll say the category is sparkling wine, and then everything from champagne to Prosecco to Cava to everything else is listed under that. The word for that in Italian in Italy, do you know what it is, Mark?
What, spumante?
No, it's called bollicini.
Bollicini.
Yeah.
Bollicini is
So
a brand, isn't it?
It is a
That's
brand,
interesting.
but it's what they use in Italy for the category of bubbles.
Really?
Yeah, for
Well, also,
anything.
that's probably why that brand is Bollicini. No?
Probably.
Wow.
So you see the bollicini category on all of these wine lists, and it's all of their bubbles. So they're
Is it just
Franciacorta.
Italian sparkling or everything?
No, it's kind of everything.
Wow.
Actually, it might just be Italian because like champagne would be a second category, and there's really not a whole lot of other bubbles from other places that would be showcased. It would be the Italian stuff in the bollicini category, and then it would be champagne, and that's kind of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you pass any wineries? And obviously, you must have passed vineyards in your travels.
We did pass
Thoughts?
Orvieto when we were on the train heading
Did you see
from
the caves or?
Nope, just saw the hill. Really did not focus that much on wine except for drinking it during dinner. And of course, the low spritz before dinner every single day. I had
It
to
must
have a
have been
spritz.
so hard for you. What is the drinking age over there? Is it still 18 in Europe?
It's
Italy?
18. Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. So my children were not allowed to partake. They had very good experiences with Italian sodas. So, yes, a lot of good lemon sodas, orange sodas. My younger son discovered Kinoto. It's a bitter soda. It's like orangish, brownish in color. Yeah, you found some fun stuff.
So what was the best food and wine pairing you had when you were there? Was it up north or south?
When our first night in Rome, we went to a restaurant that was a little fancier than we were expecting. And my husband loves zuppa de pesce. So it's like fish soup, but it's not really soup. It's like fish
Chunky, right?
with it's like fish in like a broth.
Yeah.
And it's a heartier broth. So it's like a tomato, but also like brown sauce kind of a broth. So it's a gutsy, powerful, flavored kind of dish, even though you've got clams and langoustines and like all these other things in it. So I was like, okay, we need to do something a little bit heavier. So I got a bottle of Rosé Montepulciano.
Oh, nice.
And it was great. So
They say rosé and fish is like
I
like
love
the perfect...
rosé and fish,
Yeah.
and especially like shellfish that's pink. So like
Yeah.
lobster and shrimp and things like that with rosé. I absolutely love that combination. And the nice thing about the Montepulciano was that it was a gutsier rosé. Like it was powerful and it was like a dark pink color and it had some tannin to it. So it really stood up to the zuppa de pesce. So that was a really, really nice pairing. But I have to say that everything goes with pizza. Like
Yep.
we had some amazing pizza and like everything that I ordered for wine was just perfect with it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you had fun, and it must have been
Yeah.
hard for you to stay away from the wineries, but
It was
I'm
okay.
sure.
We got to do all of our archaeology stuff too. So I got to split it. I didn't have to drag my children to to wineries this time.
Oh, and I'm
Once they're
sure
older.
they'll be dragging you there in the future when they can drink to
That's
explore
right.
all of that with you, because I know
That's
they're
right.
big foodies, and I'm sure they'll be big wine and food
Uh
people when they grow too. So
they might. I don't know. We've got them on a good path for the food. You know, they were
yeah.
it was funny. We came home and it's like, okay, so like tell us what you thought about eating in Italy. And they're like, this is how you cook at home. Like this was nothing
It's a
like this is
compliment.
totally normal for them. They're like this
Yeah.
there was nothing weird. Like there were
Good.
some weird things in Iceland last year when we went, but they're like, this is normal food. Like there's nothing unusual about this. I'm like, okay, good.
So the last thing on this topic I want to talk about is there was some mention that because of the food would have less additives in Italy, that
Mm-hmm.
might be why it helps process the alcohol better. What's your thoughts on that as far as better foods?
Yeah, I mean, more of the ingredients are like locally grown, locally processed. There's less processed food. I would say that we ate a lot of protein. So, like everything that we had, whether it was a pasta dish or whether it was a main course dish, there was a lot of protein, and protein is what you need to soak up excess alcohol, and that'll make you feel better too. But one thing that I would say too is that we drank a lot of water. You always get water when you're at dinner in Italy and lunch
Nice.
too. But there's always that bottle of sparkling water or bottle of still water. So you do stay, I think, more hydrated than you do in a normal meal here in the United States. It's like you get your glass of water on your table here, but there's like not as much of I feel like the focus on you finishing that glass of water that when you don't have like the bottle of sparkling water right in the middle of your table. For whatever reason, we were drinking water constantly. So I think that that is also a big part of why you feel better is because maybe you're a little bit better hydrated. You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine, and we are your hosts, Kim and Mark. You can find our past episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes, and more information about Mark and myself at thewww.wine. We are supported by Franklin Public Radio, and you can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Welcome back, everyone. Mark has been quizzing me about my recent family trip to Italy and about what I ate and what I drank and my impressions on how wine is consumed in Italy and why it is that you don't necessarily feel so terrible when you drink so much wine on vacation. So we've been talking about hydration and activity, and we also found an article that talks more about just kind of the food of Italy in general and why it is that what Italians eat on an everyday basis might make them a little bit healthier. So what was your one of the things that you pulled from this article that really stood out to you, Mark?
Yeah, I just thought we would go through some of the reasons. This article was in moretimettotravel.com, and it was 7 reasons why food tastes better in Italy. And we're talking about wine in Italy, and this is, I think, the perfect thing to talk about and ask you more questions if you observe this. I'll hit you with what they said, Kim, and you
Sure.
tell me if you noticed it. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first thing they said, the reason why it tastes better in Italy is because it's fresh. Whatever they making, it's usually fresh, and one of the reasons why was what they call just-in-time buying.
Mm-hmm.
The theory is they don't have much refrigeration, or they grew up with less refrigeration. Did you notice that, Kim? About everything seemed like you mentioned the one restaurant where they would cook whatever fish they had that day.
Yep.
Did you notice that a lot?
So I actually noticed this when I lived there as a student is that you shop every day. You don't go grocery shopping once a week. It's not Sunday is my grocery day and then you buy food for the whole week. You go shopping every day or maybe every other day. So yeah,
Did you notice
refrigerators
like
are
more
definitely smaller.
markets, like food stores, or do
Yeah,
you
like
notice
little
more market
groceries,
type, little stores?
both. So
Yeah.
little grocery stores, but also markets. It was February, so it was the winter. But even in Venice, which is fairly chilly because it's up in the northern part of the country, and it was in the, I don't know, let's say low 40s pretty much the whole time that we were there. A lot of the markets were still open. So the vegetable markets, the fish markets, the fruit markets, most of the squares had a little market set up for the locals to come in and get their vegetables for the day. And I will say things were fairly seasonal. So there might have been something on a menu that was not in season, and we would try to order it, and they would be like, nope, it's not cantaloupe season, so no prosciutto e melone. So, it was definitely
Yeah, so
holds
it's
true.
definitely freshness is
Yep, yep,
a
yep.
big thing. They also said local sourcing is why food tastes better there. So did you notice any, how can I say this? Did you notice like other types of foods there? I mean, is most of the stuff they're promoting their own local restaurant, local foods?
I think it depends where you are. I mean, there was certainly Kentucky Fried Chicken and a
Yeah.
couple of McDonald's here and there.
But the fancy restaurant you went to, could you tell it was locally sourced product? Like, did they say this is from?
I mean, definitely the fish, but I don't know about like the vegetables. I will say, when you're traveling the countryside, the suburbs of Italian cities do not extend out like they do here in the United States. It's like you go a mile or two outside of Rome and you're not in the suburbs, you're like in the country. So there's not a whole lot of area that doesn't immediately turn to farmland. So when you're on the train and you're going to a major city, it's grapevines, it's farmland, it's rolling hills, so much agriculture all over the place. So it definitely seems like the ability to get locally sourced produce and all of those things is fairly easy to do because their infrastructure is set up that way. There's a lot of farms
And I
and
noticed
small farms, small family farms. We're not talking like ginormous agribusiness. We're talking about small family things.
I've seen a lot of documentaries where they seem to, the chefs would like to support the local farms and they want to use the local ingredients. So I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff like that going on there
Yeah.
that people don't know. And speaking of that, another reason why they said the food tastes better is because there's deep rooted food traditions. And
Yeah.
that also goes along with the wine, the same type of thing in that old saying that what grows together goes together.
Mm-hmm.
So local foods with the local wines, it's tradition. They typically grew the vines that for wines that they like to drink with the foods that they have in their region.
Yep.
So did you notice any tradition that you didn't know of or you experienced again that you always surprised you with food in Italy? Like, I don't know, that they don't give straws or something, something strange about a food tradition over there. Spoon with the spaghetti or
No spoon with the
no?
spaghetti.
So that's not true, right?
Menus are still constructed the traditional way where you have an antipasto, a primi, which is usually a starch of some sort. So a pasta or a risotto or a polenta, depending on what part of the country you are in. And then a main, which is a meat course. And then there are the options of like a vegetable side dish and then dessert. I feel like everywhere we went, with the exception of like sandwich, little sandwich places, their menus were still constructed that way. And I was pleasantly surprised that that was how it was. I was a little concerned because I know that I have teenage boys and they can eat a lot, but still for all of us to have an appetizer and a bowl of pasta and, a piece of steak and then vegetables and dessert, that's a lot of food. So I was concerned about like breaking that tradition because I know how important food traditions are in Italy. But most of the places that we went, we each ordered like a thing. So like we might have ordered a couple of antipasti to share as our little appetizer thing, but then like we would get a couple of pastas and a couple of meat dishes and we would just all share them all. And I was concerned that that was going to be like not acceptable,
Oh, I
but it
just thought
was.
like the
Yeah.
family style thing was very popular there.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, we ended up doing that, and I know when we were in a bunch of the restaurants, there were like groups that were eating together. Actually, we saw a lot of like work colleagues going out to dinner together. So I feel like every night we went out to dinner, there was a table full of people near us that were all colleagues from their job, and they had all to dinner together, and they kind of did that same thing. It's like we'll have two of these and two of these and two of these, and then everybody sort of shared. It's such a nice way to eat, the whole sharing thing, and then you get to experience new things. And yeah, so that was nice. It's like, okay, the tradition is here, but I don't have to order one from every every course because there's no way that I can eat all that. Takeout or doggy bags is not really a thing. So we felt bad like once or twice we actually asked for things to go. And then we were like, is it okay? Like, can we take this half of a pizza with us?
Oh, did you
And they
notice
were
they had an
totally cool.
attitude? So, oh, they were
No, I
okay.
was afraid that they would. Like, oh, these silly Americans with
You
their,
just, you
doggy
couldn't eat it
bags.
all like they could,
Yeah,
right?
you couldn't eat it all. So they
Yeah.
let us take our pizza with us, which was nice.
Well, that's another thing they mentioned in this article, reasons food tastes better is because they're more professional and hospitable
Yeah.
there. So did you notice great service, friendly
Yeah,
service?
very, very friendly, very willing to give us whatever information we wanted, very amenable to us being tourists, even though we can generally get by reading Italian. And there was one restaurant, he was very nice. He gave us two Italian menus and two menus in English.
Wow.
So we could like go back and forth between the both of them. I'm like, can I have the Italian menu, please?
I was just talking to my son the other day. I saw that the Apple, what do they call the earbuds? The earbuds, AirPods?
AirPods, yeah.
They're going to put a translation feature in that
Wow.
in the next version. So you could literally sit there and he could be talking to you in Italian and in your
Oh my
earphones,
God.
you'd be hearing the translation.
That's
You
like
didn't use
Star
any
Trek.
gadget like that or
No,
translation
no, we
device?
just
No.
we just muddled through with our college Italian.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Give you a lot of credit for that.
It was I had one guy, it was our first day there, and I went and I ordered sandwiches. I'm like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this in Italian. And so
Wow.
I did, and he complimented me. He was
Wow.
like, you did a really good job. I'm like, thank you.
Wow. Probably spoke better English, right?
He spoke very good English, but I
Wow.
mean, you do. You do. But
Wow. Well, good for you.
I
So
tried. I tried
another
really hard.
another reason they say the food tastes better in Italy is because the wines elevate the food, and you really stated that as you were
Mhm.
talking. In that one soup dish your husband got, was the rosé a suggestion by them, or did you pick that?
I did ask them.
Nice.
I
That's
asked them
nice.
for a recommendation because I was like, I have no idea what the style of their Zuppa de Peche was like. I'm like, it could be really light, it could be really tomatoey. So I'm like, okay, this is what we're gonna get. I need a wine recommendation. So
Wow. So that was
I have no
obviously
problem asking for
they
a
knew it
recommendation.
elevated that food
Yep.
dish
And
and wow. So
it was a really nice it
that's
was a
great.
really nice pairing. Yeah.
So that's great advice for the listeners. If there's a dish, they go there and you always ask what would they recommend to pair with it. And
Yep.
chances are you get good advice like that. So the last reason why food tastes better there is they say just basically it's a better food centric culture.
There's a
Did
lot
you?
of joy around food. Like, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, people are enjoying something. Like, whether it's your pastry at breakfast time, whether it's your little cicchetti, little sandwichy thingy at lunch, whether it's your dinner, whether it's your low spritz before dinner. There's just so much joy around food and beverage in Italy that it's contagious.
What about the timing? I hear like dinner's like 9 o'clock. Were you there like
Yeah, it's a little
6 or
later.
7 and they looked at you like it was lunch or
No, so we never really sat down to dinner before 7 o'clock. So we would do between 7 and 8:30,
and
depending on like what our
is that
thing
like the
was.
early bird there for
Yeah, like seven
yeah?
o'clock, we were some of the first people in the restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting how they do
yeah.
that. But lunch is a key thing, correct? I mean, they like a nice heavy lunch,
I
right?
think that the heavy lunch thing is, well, I take that back. I was going to say it's more of like you go home in the middle of your workday and have a heavy lunch, but there were a couple of places that we tried to get into like at lunchtime for like sit down lunch, and we couldn't because the restaurants were packed.
Yeah.
And lunch is really short. It's like noon to 2, and that's it. So it's a really short window. So we ended up doing a lot of, I think we did maybe one sort of nice sit down, hang out for a while lunch, and then pizza, of course. But most of our other lunches were pretty quick.
Did you
And dinner
venture in
was our
any
larger one.
street foods or walk up window type
Um,
little
yeah.
bites or anything like that?
So there's this particular thing in Venice that is very traditional, which looks like little almost like rounds of bread. So like how you would have like bruschetta with different things on top of them. It's called cicchetti. So it's these, you have like a little slice of like a baguette, and then like, vegetables, or cheese, or, smoked fish or whatever on top of them. And you would get like 3 per person or something. So that was kind of the equivalent of Venetian street food, because you would go in, you would order at the window, and then you would go out on the street and just sort of hang out and eat it. So that was kind of really traditional Venetian lunch snacky food kind of thing that we did. But there's not that much like street food besides sandwiches and pizza and things like that, like things that would be familiar to a lot of us. So we didn't do that much stuff except for like pastries, because I love pastries. So we would go in and like try a bunch of things and just and we would all just walk around and eat them. So,
and did you bring any beverages home, or
so we
found
so at one of the restaurants we went to, as their little after dinner drink, it was like limoncello, but it was cantaloupe instead of lemon.
Wow, that's
unusual. So it was like we started calling it meloncino.
Wow.
And so we brought a little bottle of that home. So it was like a thick melon flavored limoncello kind of a thing.
What was the process with that? Carry on, or did you pack it in?
No, that I packed.
Yeah,
I always pack all my stuff. I always pack all my liquids.
It safely made it back.
Yeah, and some olive oil and some balsamic vinegar and some stuff like that. But that was the new find. All in a suitcase.
Wow.
Yep. Or in the kid's suitcase. Somebody's suitcase.
Any tips for our listeners on how you did that? Did you double bag it?
So what I do is I'll wrap them in something plasticky like a bag, and then in an article of clothing, and then I usually stuff them in my shoes. So like if we had boots, I would put a bottle of wine in a boot, and that seemed to work very well. The little bottles of stuff that we brought, so like the limoncello and the meloncello that we brought home was only like a quarter bottle, so it wasn't a full size bottle, it was a small one. So those we did the same way. We wrapped up and then wrapped in an article of clothing, and then just stuck them in somebody's shoe for extra protection.
Have you seen the melon stuff here? I've seen pistachio. No. I've never seen.
Pistachio is the hot flavor right now. Yeah. Everything is pistachio.
I've never seen a melon.
This was a new thing for us, so we were pretty excited to find the melon, and we brought a little bottle home.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so our listeners know, if you're friends of Kim here, you have to try that out with her. All right, Kim, great. I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad we got to talk to the listeners about the trip and the whole myth about being on vacation and why it's doesn't hurt you. And we get that question all the time. It's probably the most common question people say. And
so all these factors, walk more, drink more water.
Yeah,
eat your protein.
Active, your mind's not on anything but being on vacation.
You're less stressed. You're more relaxed. I think it's just easier for your body to process things.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you for joining us today on The Wonderful World of Wine. We've been your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. Our program is supported by Franklin Public Radio. You can find us on all social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. You can find our past episodes on most podcast sites, SoundCloud, iTunes, and any questions or comments, you can find us on our Facebook page and let us know. Thank you for listening. Cheers. Why?